Well, let's do the introductions first.
Sure.
Hayley Vernon,
Yes.
32, from Melbourne, married at first sight villain, starlet, and am I correct in saying recovering ice addict?
That's it. Hayley Vernon, 32 years of age, from Port Melbourne, villain, loudmouth, ex-drug addict, philanthropist, whatever label you want to put on me.
Some CV.
It is some CV, isn't it? I think it precedes me.
So look, tell us about your introduction to the drug ice, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so I don't think it was a straight introduction into ice. I don't think it ever is. I suppose I was like most young kids where I started off, I smoked marijuana. I don't want to say that marijuana was the gateway drug because I believe that it's your set of circumstances that lead you into harder, bigger, I suppose more serious drugs as such. Let's go back on that. It's definitely a set of circumstances and the environment that you're in that lead you to progressively worse drugs.
Okay, well, let's rewind a little bit. You talked about marijuana and you haven't described it as a gateway drug, but certainly was the first drug that you were introduced to.
Sure.
When did that happen? What age and what circumstances?
Yeah, so look, I come from I don't want to say a low socioeconomic area, but an area where drugs are rife. It was probably easier when I was younger to get drugs as opposed to get alcohol, to be quite honest with you. And I've always been a bit of a boys' girl. I've always been one to hang around guys, and in the area that I was brought up in, Frankston, pot and chuff, whatever you want to call it, what was the drug of choice. That's something that everyone did. I still remember the first time that I did it, and I ended up vomiting heavily.
Were you still at school or?
Yeah. I was. I think I was in year 9, so that would have been, how old are you in year 9? 15, coming on 16 years of age. It was at a party. People were doing it. I still remember the people that I was with didn't want me to do it. Yeah, and I'm like, I thought I could keep up with the boys. I wanted to do it, and I thought it was fun. So I did it, and
did it become something habitual or?
Yeah, it definitely became something habitual. Something that I've learned looking back on my life is that I have a heavily, how would I say it? Is an addictive personality. An addictive personality to everything, even with gym. You know what I mean? I don't do things in half-assed measures. I go hard or I go home, as they would say. So yeah, it did. It wasn't like that. I didn't, pick up a bong every day or, smoke a spliff. I had a partner at the time who smoked marijuana. And then from there on moving forward, I suppose it did become a habit. It probably, I don't want to say it preceded my ice addiction, but it was probably comparable to the way in which I used ice. I would smoke marijuana before I went to school. I'd smoke it after school. I'd smoke it if I was happy. I'd smoke it if I was sad. And then it kind of becomes something that's just a part of your day. I didn't see it as a negative, nor did I see it as a positive. It just was. It was just a part of my life and who I was as a person.
And it normalises drugs?
What normalises drugs?
The marijuana use normalises drugs in the wider context, the use of all drugs.
No, I think where I grew up normalises drugs, to be honest with you. If you got someone from Toorak or, a more uppity area and you spoke about my past, they'd look at it like that isn't the social norm. Where I was brought up, my area kind of normalised drug addiction and drug use. I'd probably say that, 2 out of 3 people from the area that I grew up in were on some type of drugs, and from a very young age. And, these weren't smack addict, skinny, weaselly looking people. These were people that held down jobs, came from good families. Look, I went to one of the best girls' schools in Melbourne. I went to Kilbreda Girls College, in year 7, then moved to a co-ed school, which also was one of its best, yeah? So when people talk about drug addicts and drug addiction and that kind of thing, I think there's a stigma to who is a drug addict and what they look like. We definitely weren't them.
At any stage during those early years, were you internalising it at all? Were you saying, well, this is actually affecting my decision-making processes, this is affecting my life decisions? Was there any of that?
I don't think at 16 or 15 years of age, you really internalise anything and sit back and, take inventory on what's actually happening. I think, at 16, 15 years of age, you're trying to find who you are as a person. You're trying to find your character, well, not your character, your personality, and what your beliefs are and what you stand by. So I wouldn't say I was internalizing it. It was just the norm, Steve. It was just something that we did. And yeah, I kind of knew at one stage, at the pointier end, this was a couple of years later, that I couldn't function without smoking marijuana. But at the same time, it was taking away a lot of my social skills as well. So it was a drug that I started doing, to have fun, to laugh. And, when you first start getting high, you start having the giggles and you start being brash and, you're joking around. And it got to the point where my anxiety levels were so severe that I almost had trouble leaving the house or talking to someone, or, you know what I mean? And I started kind of imploding a little bit. And I suppose I got angry. And I suppose I've always been a little bit angry at the world and had this chip on my shoulder, and that comes from another part of my life. But it wasn't doing anything for me and my anger issues. I would kind of be steady, and then I'd almost skits it. I'd almost lose it at myself and go, actually, when you say to me, did you internalize it? Did you know that it was affecting your life? I suppose I probably, now I'm having this conversation with you because I've never really discussed it in depth like this, yeah? That probably I pushed it to the wayside, and it wasn't until certain pinnacles throughout that time where, I don't know, I had a massive fight with someone, or, I wasn't speaking to dad at the time, or, I was having issues with my mum, or, family and friends, that shit would hit the fan. And then I'd be like, well, and, then the aggression would come out, the anger would come out. Why am I doing this kind of thing?
We talk about aggression. What about progression? And the dramatic progression from a dope smoker to an ice user, which is, there must have been quite a significant pathway to get to that point.
Yeah, so, I'd like to say that it was significant, but and it comes back to, where I grew up. And there was a click where it went from marijuana and then it went to speed. Everyone in my area was doing speed. They weren't shooting up or anything, but, you go to a party, you go to a house. Now, we're getting older now, Steve. So, we're not 16 anymore. We're, say, 17, 18 years of age. So, you go to a party now and it's not marijuana use. You've got lines of speed. You've got people, smoking speed as well, So I've always been, stop. I've always been one that, I like to have fun. And as I said, I don't do things in halves. So, I'd go to music events and festivals, and, there were people doing lines and that kind of thing. And at this point of my life, I was having trouble with my mum. Me and my mum, I suppose the majority of my adolescent life had a turbulent relationship. It was tumultuous. It was toxic. And it was toxic on both sides, I'll admit that. I was very angry at her and angry at my dad for our family breaking up. And I suppose it would get to the weekend and I'd always hang around with older people, and I'd just want to forget everything that was happening at home.
So, look, tell us about the first time you tried ice, the first time you picked up that bowl and...
Yeah, the first time. I actually can't remember the first time I did ice. I can tell you the first couple of times around there, but I can't remember it. And this is a long-term effect of drug use as well. So there are certain stages in my life that I don't want to say that I have no recollection of, because I do, but the exact points of I did things, and I get timelines mixed up as well, yeah. So
how old were you?
How old was I? 17, 18 years of age.
Very young.
Yeah, it is really young. It is really young. And I remember being at a music festival in Melbourne, and I bumped into a girl that I went to school with. And, it's a music festival. People are young, they're doing drugs in toilets, that kind of thing. And, I had pills and I had speed. And she walked out the toilet with a pipe, and I'd never seen one before. I was like nothing I've ever experienced before. But I remember her saying, no, you don't want to do this, Hales. It got to the point where it was almost like we would be up for 2 to 4 days at a time. I was getting aggressive because she knew what was going on. I was getting angry. You got no idea what I'm going through.